We are going to move on now to Corey Wilton. He is here with Myriad Labs. He's one of the co-founders. He is going to be talking a little bit about the real audience of Play to Earn gaming, which sort of gets into how do you look at this bigger market than some of the NFT projects building games. How do you actually have a sustainable business model, make revenue, keep making revenue over time, have a quality game, and then how do you also integrate this NFT metaverse technology into current businesses and current games that are out there, and really expanding the pie to more people to interact with this new technology. So yeah, super excited for Corey, and let's give it up. Woo!
Hi everyone. Hi. Okay. I think we're good. Thank you so much for coming out. If you kind of got a brief intro, but my name's Corey, co-founder at Myriad Labs. We were the creator of Pegaxi, if you guys are familiar. If you're not, it's a very, very simple horse racing game on the Polygon chain that we launched in November 15th, 2021. So kind of around the time that Axie had peak hype was the time that we released. And since then, you may have seen it in the last panel, but we had about $200 million through the platform, which is an obnoxious amount. And I wanted to kind of break this down for you guys and recognize a couple of trends here. So basically, what I want to do is preface a couple of things before we do dive in, like who and why I'm doing this. So who this is for, it's primarily going to be the guys who are probably already in the space. So for example, if you're a guild or you're a player, but also VCs or angels or anyone just looking to invest or make a generally sound investment, not aping in, essentially. So, and the reason that I want to talk about that is obviously us being able to understand the stage of, or the timing of the current industry or the stage that our audience is in is going to help us make better informed decisions, especially if you're a guild. For example, we've got guys that are from a guild at the front here, but also if you're a VC and you're not deep into the industry, it's definitely important to have that perspective. So again, prefacing what the stages are of, I guess, the industry currently. This is more so, I guess, crypto native, but it would also apply to the traditional space as well. So we kind of have like 5 different stages. Initially, we'll have a niche community. That's generally how most things will start. And this really summarizes everything you've ever seen of Bitcoin, of Ethereum. These basically all follow the same trends. So a niche community is similar if we're in the NFT space. It's similar to something like CryptoKitties that was around, I think, probably like 2017 or something like that, during the other, I guess, ICO phase as well. So these guys were very, very early, but the community was very, very niche. Not many people knew about it, but they were definitely passionate. They then moved on to the word-of-mouth discoverers. So it's kind of like the niche community started talking to each other, who talked to a couple more people. When those people come in, that's what we call, I guess, the word-of-mouth discoverers. So these guys learned it from someone else. They weren't doing their own research. Someone told them about it. Now, the word-of-mouth discoverers are a really pivotal point in the journey, I guess you could say. So if there's a lot of word-of-mouth discoverers that love to talk, these guys are going to build it pretty damn quickly, and you start to get a bit of a snowball effect at that point. It moves on to, I guess, a very familiar situation that a lot of people do get exposed to the industry through, which is the next best thing stage. Now, this is kind of the point where people are like, this technology, NFTs, this is going to revolutionize gaming, this is going to change literal Earth. This is where people kind of get a little bit crazy in their mind, where they're like, this is going to change everything, how people eat food. NFTs are going to save lives. They go a little bit crazy. And then it moves into a bit of a realization stage. The realization stage is something I think a lot of people will be familiar with as well if they went through DeFi Summer. So realization is kind of us sitting there. We've gone through, the next best thing, but we're realizing that maybe NFTs aren't going to save lives or change how I eat food, or they're not as good as I thought they were, or even it's going to take a hell of a lot longer than I suspected, and I'm not going to get rich overnight. And then finally, you get into a maturity point where things start to get a little bit saturated, and things are a bit normal. NFTs are not new, or gaming or DeFi is not new anymore. Actually, before I go forward, I kind of wanted to run an experiment. I want to get your opinion, so please do participate. Put your hand up if you think we are still currently in the GameFi P2E space in a niche community. That's surprising. Okay. Word of mouth discovering stage. Okay. Next best thing. Really? Holy crap. Okay. The realization stage. What the? I was not suspecting that. Okay. We got one at the back. Amazing. And then maturity stage. Okay. Wow. All right. That is not what I expected. But anyway, so I should probably preface this as well. This is obviously going to be my opinion on where I feel that we are. So the reality, currently I feel we are at a bit of a cross between the next best thing stage and the realization stage. So why? I think obviously Axie Infinity was kind of the beginning of the next best thing stage. And the people who were in Axie early are now coming to feel that there is something happening. There is, which I will talk about here, but there's something happening that does tend to repeat. And they're transforming into the realization stage. But we're at a crossroad because a lot of people are still coming into the industry and looking at stepping. They don't understand what the shit is actually happening, but they think it's the next best thing because you can make money for running now. And it just gets them out of bed. So that's why I think we are at a bit of a crossroad there, but clearly everyone disagrees with me, so that's crazy. But anyway, it's very important for us to, what I feel, it's important for us to recognize who's actually playing right now and what these stages mean. So if we take a step back and look at all of those stages combined, the first 4 stages are really all the same people. So, and the reason for that is basically the next line there that you guys will see. The first 4 stages experience all the good and all the bad. So, you know, the niche community, you know, the people who got into Axie when it was just lines of code, they're the ones that make the stupid, ridiculous amount of gains if they're able to stick around, like, you know, 1,000% type stuff, like even more than that. It's crypto. And then, obviously, in the word of mouth discoverers, they're generally pretty early as well. It's a 10,000 type person community. It moves up to a 100,000 type community. And then in, obviously, the next best thing stage is when it absolutely goes ballistic. But in the realization stage, this is where I would say most of the losses are made. And this is where I think the crossroad between the next best thing and obviously the realization stage is where most people get hurt. You're generally ending up being exit liquidity for a lot of people. But those first 4 stages are the same people. And because they go through all of that bullshit, all of the tough times, getting rug pulled, all that type of stuff, they generally don't make it to maturity. So you'll see them bounce from thing to thing, but all of a sudden, you know, the OGs, when it gets to maturity, they've moved on into something else. And in crypto, it's a bit of a weird thing, but maturity tends to scare people because they think it's the end of the potential. And that was basically seen in DeFi summer. What I call that is Web3 Brain. Essentially, you think Web3 is completely detached from reality. So most studios actually in the GameFi space at the moment are Web3 native, including ourselves. We were exposed to the Web3 space before considering moving into being a game studio. Now what that means is that even us, we come along with some pretty bad habits. You know, we didn't think this, luckily, but a lot of people are coming into the space. They launch a token, they launch an NFT, they want as much hype as possible. They go to the effing moon and they think they've made it. Or they think that's how you start a new business or how you start a game. But unfortunately, that's just not the reality. Because you're in Web3, it doesn't mean that you guys can forget the fundamentals of running a business. Like, if you get a massive amount of hype, that's amazing, but then what? It's kind of, you're in a bit of a weird position, right? You've peaked in alpha. Then what are you going to do? It's a pretty tough situation to be in. And it's important for you guys to recognize that Web3 isn't a charity. What that means is that basically there is no handouts. If you have a product and you come to market, similar to how we did, and you get all of the hype in the world, if you don't have a product at the top of the hype or you haven't developed in impossible speeds, the money's going to go somewhere else. That's just the reality. That's the reality of Web3 in general. That's why you see charts do this all the time. It's a difficult situation to be in, and it's kind of why I believe this, I'll explain it in a little bit, but the cycles are a little bit different to, I guess, our current perception. And easiest way to put this is the bottom line of the thin text. It would be absolutely insane to see a trad space company go and do a public IPO at a $500 million valuation, and these guys don't have a product. No one knows what the F they do. They've just been talking. Like that shit's insane. But literally probably 3 have happened today in the crypto space. We are completely detached from literal reality. But it's important to note, we are not, the game space, I should say, is not DeFi. Maturity within the crypto space, us getting to that final stage, doesn't mean that we have total saturation of the industry itself. In theory, it's actually the beginning of a new cycle, and which is probably going to be the real cycle. The audience within maturity is the real audience. Now, as I said earlier, the first 4 stages are the same people, but when we get into maturity, they're generally not the same people. When we get into maturity, what needs to happen is that these companies need to go out and do actual user acquisition. Like, you need to have a completed game to be able to attract people to come and play your game. I don't know if anyone can name an actually completed game inside the Web3 space. No one is doing that yet, and that's why the users are still from the Web3 space. But there will be a transition. Well, in theory, there should be a transition, and that's kind of the little graphic down the bottom that you see there. When a mature industry comes, a studio has 2 decisions, literally adapt or die. If they were launched in the Web3 space, adapting means obviously Web 2 fundamentals, or just traditional space fundamentals. You need to have user acquisition strategies. You need to be able to run a profitable company. You can't just live off of hype and organic user acquisition. It's just, unfortunately, not a reality. And if you don't adapt, you're going to die. These are perfect examples of that. You guys probably are going to be familiar with almost all of them. So up the top here, we've got Rev Racing, which is by Animoca Brands, billion-dollar previously publicly traded company. You can see here they had something called F1 Delta Time. So they got a massive hype, amazing, epic game, awesome, and then all of a sudden it came down because it's crypto. It's Web3 Brain. They had some other game launches. The same thing happens. People get hyped. They pump it up. Next thing happens, you've got the bag holders coming on the way down. Pegaxi, our game, we had the exact same thing. We launched with a 2D literal arcade game. It's not player controlled. We got sent to the effing moon by the community. It was amazing, a crazy experience, but you can see what happens. It's going to come down again because we're simply unable to develop the product quick enough to sustain or satisfy the current user base, which is the crypto people. Axie Infinity, the exact same thing. If you're a VC in all of these, you probably hate yourself because you signed up for a 36+ month lock-in period. But Axie has the exact same thing. Illuvium doesn't even have a game. How the shit did they go through the exact same thing? Like, it's a trend. You go and look at Steppen. Unfortunately, they're probably going to repeat the same shit because people are there. You go look at ApeCoin. I'm pretty sure it's doing the exact same thing, guys. Like, it's very, very important to note this trend. This was independent of the current bear market as well. This was just the trend that games were having, independent of their tokenomics, independent of all of that stuff. It's simply based off of Web3 hype. And what I kind of wanted to do here is summarize it for you guys in an easy way. Hopefully it does stick with you. That instant early hype that you're seeing these games get is probably not going to be your best friend if you're a game studio, but also a VC or something like that. Obviously, if it's you guys playing, if you're getting into these, you want to sell at the top. I think that's pretty obvious. You don't want to buy the top. I've been chronic on about 3 of them. I've bought the top, but that's okay. Essentially, those early hype movements are not going to be your best friend. It's not something that you really do want. The current token movements, however, do not dictate the success of the game. No one's going to say Illuvium failed. Illuvium hasn't even released yet. It's impossible. So it's very important to look at these charts with what they are. This was based off pure speculation, and essentially people just trying to make money off each other. It's trading. It is what it is, and charts will do this when things trend. Business fundamentals apply to all studios, Web 2 or Web 3. What that means is that you're going to have studios that do this, games that do this, but the reality is it doesn't matter. If they have a profitable business, their studio is good, they know how to make money, and when push comes to shove and you can't garner that type of crazy hype anymore because we've matured, they have a user acquisition strategy that is sustainable, they're going to win. And I think that's very, very important for us to note. Current users are not the real users. Again, I've kind of stressed this a lot, but the users that we have now are crypto natives, so they're here for money. When we go out there and the games are finished, Illuvium, Axie, PegAxie, you're probably still 12 to 24 months away. When we go out and do ads, user acquisition strategy, these guys are not even crypto native. Like, we're going to be hiding all of the crypto inside the game. You're not even going to be interacting with it directly or know what the shit is happening. It's not the same user base. So I guess the reactions or the outcome is generally going to be different because they're also finished games. And then finally, in 24 months, the real studios will still be around. The rest are going to be relics. And I think it's important for you guys as users, but also if you're investing as well, to be able to recognize and ask the team if they do have a plan for user acquisition strategies. Most of them will say, we've got some KOLs, we've got some shillers, it's going to be sick. The reality is that's just not sustainable. They really need to know how to go to market. So hopefully that does help you guys and not get wrecked. I'm pretty sure everyone sitting here has probably been wrecked today, so hopefully not too bad. But I appreciate your time, guys. Thank you so much for having me, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Ciao, ciao.